Hey there, welcome back to Undercover Mysteries. Today, we're plunging into the world of cave diving. Our first story will take you into the depths, where a diver's worst nightmare becomes reality in the blink of an eye. But stick around, because the second story, let's just say it's one that even the most experienced divers still whisper about. What happened deep beneath the surface will leave you questioning everything. Let's get started. Bob Thomas lived for adventure. He cheered for the Houston Astros, dove into deep seas, and binged nature shows on Discovery. His wild spirit went beyond the usual. He climbed mountains and tackled tough rock faces before becoming a master diver. But Bob's first big adventure came in the US Navy, where he served from 1987 to 1993. After that, he moved into IT work. Still, Bob never lost his love for excitement. On Facebook, Bob called himself an IT architect, conservationist, and diving fanatic. His photos showed a life full of action and nature, shots with dive buddies, his girlfriend, and himself in full scuba gear. For Bob, diving wasn't just a hobby. It had become part of who he was. His friends said that for over 20 years, diving came as naturally to Bob as breathing. Everything changed on November 19, 2017. While most people prepared for Thanksgiving, Bob had other ideas. That Sunday, he decided to go for a quick dive, something he'd done many times before. His plan was simple: dive, then head to his girlfriend's house for a party. That morning, Bob left home and met two diving friends, a man and a woman. They went to the Tilly Foster Iron Mine in Putnam County, New York, near Brewster Station. Tilly Foster Mine had an interesting past of discovery and tragedy. Named after Tilly Foster, the mine started in the early 1800s as a busy mining spot. By the late 1800s, it had become a huge open pit, over 400 feet deep, with room to grow. Sadly, in 1895, part of the mine caved in, killing 13 workers. This event ended mining there, and soon after, the nearby reservoir flooded the pit, turning it into an underwater cave. Bob's interest in Tilly Foster Mine went beyond its tragic past. He had a personal mission. Bob dove there to solve the mystery of Robin F. Murphy, a 17-year-old girl who vanished on April 9, 1995. Over time, search teams explored the mine, thinking her remains might be deep below. A psychic named Valentina Lomborg even claimed Robin was murdered and dumped there. But no solid proof ever surfaced. Robin's case stayed open, and Bob wanted to help. He joined a volunteer dive team led by Dan Wright, an expert diver. Bob and his teammates hoped to find clues to give Robin's family closure. From 2016 to 2017, they made almost 90 dives. In August 2016, they thought they had a breakthrough. They found a piece of clothing matching Robin's. Her mother and the police confirmed it was hers, pushing the divers to keep searching. By November 2017, Bob and his team still dove, looking for more. That Sunday, Bob called two diving friends to join him for another dive. It seemed like a normal day, just like their many other dives into Tilly Foster Mine. The mine setup was familiar. Divers stood on a platform above the water, ready to jump into the 177-foot drop. Bob came prepared with his scuba gear: tank, regulator, heated wetsuit, mask, fins, and other essentials. The surface water temperature was 70 degrees Fahrenheit, but 10 feet down, it dropped to 42 degrees Fahrenheit. Bob's wetsuit handled the cold well, and he had years of experience in these conditions. At noon, Bob made his first jump, leaving his friends on the surface. Everything seemed fine until Bob noticed his scuba tank running low on air. This wasn't a crisis yet. Experienced divers like Bob know how to manage air. But Bob hadn't brought a backup tank, a choice that would soon cause problems. Bob's dive that day took an unexpected turn. As he explored the underwater cave, he pushed deeper, driven by his mission to find clues about Robin. The cold water surrounded him, but his wetsuit kept him warm. His movements stirred up silt, making it hard to see clearly. Time passed quickly underwater. Bob checked his air gauge often, knowing he needed to surface soon. But something caught his eye, a glint of metal in the murky water. He swam closer, heart racing. As Bob investigated, he lost track of time. His air supply dwindled faster than he realized. Suddenly, he felt the urgent need to surface. He turned back, but the cave's twists and turns confused him. Panic set in as he struggled to find his way out. Bob's training kicked in. He tried to stay calm and conserve air. He swam slowly, searching for familiar landmarks. But the lack of air made thinking clearly difficult. His lungs burned, demanding oxygen he didn't have. In those final moments, Bob thought of his loved ones, his passion for diving, and the mystery he hoped to solve. As darkness closed in, he realized the risks he'd taken in pursuit of answers. The Tilly Foster Mine, once a place of adventure and purpose, became Bob's final resting place. Bob's situation worsened quickly. He cut his dive short to refill his tank, but faced a major challenge. Debris clouded the water, making it hard to see. Bob felt lost. His dive lights barely pierced the darkness, not enough to guide him. Fear crept in. The cold, dark water and dwindling air muddled Bob's thoughts. He got tangled in underwater cables, making things worse. Panic took over. Bob thrashed around, trying to break free, but only got more stuck. Each move used up more air. His dive computer showed only minutes of oxygen left. Bob needed to surface, but the cables trapped him. Usually, a scuba tank lasts up to an hour, depending on depth. But at 100 feet down, time shrinks fast. Bob's panic had already used up much of his air. At 12:34 p.m., less than an hour after diving in, Bob ran out of air. He blacked out from hypoxia, lack of oxygen. Even then, someone could have saved Bob if they knew he was in trouble, but his friends on the surface had no clue anything was wrong. Time ticked by. Dan Wright, Bob's colleague, started searching at 1 p.m. He stayed underwater for over 2 hours, but couldn't find Bob. Meanwhile, Bob's girlfriend waited for him at the party. When he hadn't shown up by 3:50 p.m., she called the police. The search for Bob started right away. Local fire department divers and state police joined in. They used high-tech sonar and cameras to search the mine. The next day, at 12:55 p.m., they found Bob's body. He was still tangled in cables 171 feet below. Officials ruled his death an accident. Months later, people placed a memorial stone to honor Bob. It stood as a tribute to a man whose love for adventure ultimately took his life. His death reminded other divers of the dangers lurking in dark waters. The search team's discovery brought closure, but also deep sadness. Bob's friends and family mourned the loss of a brave, caring man. His dedication to finding Robin Murphy's remains showed his selfless nature. Though he didn't solve that mystery, Bob's efforts weren't in vain. He inspired others to keep searching for answers. In summer 2014, 4 friends set out on a life-changing journey to Spain's Costa Brava region. Their target? The notorious Cova del's Arca cave system, nicknamed Cave of Caskets due to its deadly past. Though small, stretching only 262 feet, the cave system had a reputation for being unpredictable and treacherous. Its entrance lay hidden 23 feet below the Mediterranean surface, in clear, calm waters that seemed deceptively welcoming. Far from scaring the group, the cave's infamy only fueled their excitement. On July 19, 2014, Ricard, Dionisio, and an unnamed friend geared up for their big adventure. The 4th member stayed on the boat as a safety measure. This dive wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. The group had spent months planning, studying cave maps, talking to local experts, and practicing emergency drills. It wasn't just about thrills. They had worked hard towards this goal. As they slipped into the cool water, their minds buzzed with anticipation for what lay ahead. Before entering Cova del's Arca, the trio explored nearby caves, testing their gear and getting familiar with the underwater landscape. The clear waters and stunning rock formations gave them a taste of the beauty awaiting them. Everything seemed to go smoothly until it didn't. As they neared Cova del's Arc's entrance, the third diver spotted something alarming. There was no guideline rope marking their path, and thick silt covered the cave floor. These two factors spelled danger. Without a guideline, they had no clear route back to safety, and the silt could easily cloud the water, causing disorientation. Trusting his gut, he made the tough call to abort the dive. Ricard and Dionisio, however, pressed on. They had come too far and prepared too long to turn back now. Their adventurous spirit and desire to push limits overpowered their caution. They watched their friend swim to safety, but for them, the cave's mysteries proved too tempting. They ventured deeper into the cave. The cave's entrance swallowed them, and everything changed. Darkness enveloped them, and an eerie quiet settled in. Their lights pierced the black, revealing walls adorned with intricate rock patterns. Centuries of nature's work had shaped these formations. The sight amazed and frightened them at once. The deeper they swam, the more reality sank in. They were far below the surface with limited air. The danger of their unexplored surroundings weighed on them, yet their love for discovery pushed them forward. They wanted to see what waited beyond the next turn. At the cave's deepest point, disaster struck. As Ricard and Dionisio started to ascend, their fins disturbed the fine silt on the floor. The clear water turned into a murky cloud. In a blink, they lost all sight. They found themselves trapped in a disorienting haze, directionless. Worse still, they had no guideline rope to lead them back. The gravity of their situation hit them hard. Fear gripped them as they grasped how dire things were. Their air was running out fast. They couldn't wait for the silt to settle. Every minute spent in the depths used up their precious oxygen. Time slipped away, and their chances of survival dwindled rapidly. Just as hope seemed lost, a faint glow appeared in the distance. It was a slim chance, but there were only one. Desperation fueled their movements as they swam toward the light, clinging to the hope of safety. As they neared, they found a narrow crack in the cave wall, just wide enough to squeeze through. On the other side, they entered a parallel cave system, and more importantly, an air pocket. For the first time in what felt like forever, Ricard and Dionisio breathed without their gear. They removed their equipment and gulped air, thankful to be alive. But safety was still far off. The air pocket offered only temporary refuge. As they breathed, carbon dioxide built up in the small space, soon making the air toxic. They needed to find a way out, and fast. Their minds raced, searching for a solution. The cave's twists and turns had disoriented them completely. They had no idea which direction led to the exit. The thought of venturing back into the water filled them with dread. But staying put meant certain death. They faced an impossible choice: risk drowning in the murky waters or slowly suffocate in their temporary haven. Their friend on the boat acted fast. When Ricard and Dionisio didn't surface on time, he called for help. By 11 a.m., a big rescue mission started. Corporal Fernando Aguirre from Spain's Civil Guard led the effort. He gathered skilled divers and talked to local experts who knew the cave well. But everyone knew this wouldn't be easy. Cova del's Arc had a bad reputation for being tricky and dangerous. As hours passed, things looked worse for Ricard and Dionisio. Their safe spot was turning deadly. The air they breathed was becoming poison. Their bodies got cold and dry, making them weak and tired. Ricard struggled more from the start. He couldn't stay up anymore. Too weak to fight, he sank under the water. Dionisio was now alone. He held on, wanting to live for himself and for Ricard. His will to survive kept him going. The rescue team pushed through the muddy water. The dirty water meant they were on the right track. Unlike Ricard and Dionisio, they had a rope to guide them back. When they squeezed through the small crack, they saw a sad sight. Ricard floated lifeless in the water. Dionisio barely held on to a rock, almost passed out. He was so tired and confused that he didn't want help at first. Time was running out fast. Corporal Aguirre took a risk. He brought Dionisio's friend from the boat into the cave. He hoped seeing someone familiar would help Denisio. It worked. When Denisio saw his friend, he seemed to wake up. Hope came back to his eyes. With some gentle words, the rescuers got Denisio to work with them. They gave him medicine to calm him down and brought him up. Denisio became the first diver in Spain to live through such a scary event. They brought Ricard's body out soon after. The diving world felt sad about his death. His name joined the long list of people who died in Cova del's Arca. The cave had claimed another life. The rescue showed how dangerous cave diving can be. It also showed how brave and skilled rescue teams are.